Cool. What about now? You can probably hear me now. Hopefully that worked. Sorry about that. This mic, I can't wait. For Christmas, I'm getting a different mic. So this mic's probably going out. All right, how about now? Should hopefully be able to hear me now since I just switched up my awesome. Hey, Tyler, what's going on? Walking through your lab, brother. I was having some technical difficulties with my audio. I'm glad. I'm glad. No name or the nerd. It looks like it is in their on their user interface there. They were able to let me know. So, all right. So, kind of pick up where I left off, or to kind of, I know that you, um, the one that was on here watching before, I didn't even realize you couldn't even hear me. So, all right. So, the point that we're at, um, oh, nice. Got done playing Counter Strike. All right. So, what we've done is we were given the credentials for E. Harris. We're able to utilize those to make our first initial enumeration, which we did with our SMB shares. And we found out that part of those SMB shares were HR. And then what we did is we were able to extract those documents, those PDF files onto our system, and we were able to kind of go through those. And then what we found is um, there had to be a password. One of them was password protected, right? So that was the start guide. We were able to find the password for that, and then be able to get into the start guide. And then from there, we found default credentials. So once we found those, what we did is we RPC'd, since RPC, once we did our scan, we knew RPC was available. So through our Rust scan and Nmap, we did an RPC enum DOM users and enum DOM groups, and we found out a list of users, put those in our notes. And then we took the default credentials. Once we found those with HR, you start thinking, well, what kind of, meatball scenario do you kind of see in real life where IT gives somebody a default password and they never change it until it comes time where they're forced to change it. So we were able to try that, and we found out that A. Harris has the default credential. So we were able to take A. Harris, be able to utilize them to push for the Bloodhound. So we're able to gather Bloodhound information. Or with E. Hills, we did that. We pulled all that information. We started our console with our Bloodhound. And so A. Harris had the default credentials. And since we ran Bloodhound, we were able to find that, well, there's iPark, but you already saw what we did up to this point. Um, so we were able to change iParks since A. Harris was part of HR, and HR actually had generic all for the users in that group, or for over iPark. We were able to change iPark's password, so now we could pound iPark. iPark then, once we enumerated them in Bloodhound, we found out that they were part of the help desk, which also there were two service accounts that iPark could actually force change password with that. And we typically know with service accounts, typically might have a little bit higher permissions, not exactly admin, but there are things that we could probably do with service accounts. Because remember, back in the HR handbook, it also said that, hey, under access and permissions, if you see an SVC account, stay away from it. You don't have access to, or you don't have permission to do anything with it. However, with our curiosity, yes, we do. So since we actually, what we saw up here with iPark, we come down here, we're able to validate, do a sanity check that we changed iPark's password to port 02025, and then boom, ran that through our SMB, and then we got a positive. And then we figured out, well, if iPark can change, or if we can change iParks and iPark can force change password to a service account, let's do that. So what we did is we changed the the service CA to port 0 2026. And we just confirmed that we were able to, that one is good to go now, right? So the cool thing is, so now, like I said, we're getting into Certify, uh, because now that we have this service account, um, what we can do is try to find any vulnerabilities within the certificate authority. So we found, when we did our enumeration, we found a certificate authority of welcome dash CA. It was kind of, if you weren't looking for that, but we're gonna really see it come up here. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna run certify AD find dash U. The user is going to be SVC CA. Oh, at welcome.local, and then the password is going to be 40 2026 with DC IP 10.0.28.98, and then let's see if we can find anything vulnerable. So let's let this run. So as we ran this, or as we're running this, um, you can see it's retrieving, successfully retrieved the certificate authority configuration for welcome-CA. And as we scroll up, there's a couple things we're going to look for here. Okay, it did an error permission denied because I didn't run it with sudo, but we still got the standard out, which is on the screen. If I'd have ran it with sudo, it would have dumped it into the certify.txt file. So yeah, I didn't run it sudo, but anyway, we can still get the gist of what we need here. So our certificate authority name is welcome-CA, with our DNS name, and then another thing that comes down here, we've got our template name, welcome dash or dash template. And what's cool is, so the vulnerability it found was the ESC1 vulnerability, the enrollee supply subject and template, and allows client authentication. Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah, sudo, man. I forget a lot of times to use it. Sometimes I won't use sudo. Like, well, you see here, because we didn't use it, it didn't dump it into the certify.txt file, right? Because permission denied. But I've also run other commands, and it says, and it kept faulting. And I'm like, what is going on? Oh, that's right. I didn't run sudo on that because I didn't have root privileges. So um, I was only running just my user privileges. So, all right. So what we did is we found a vulnerability, the ESC1 vulnerability. Okay. So we don't really need all of this to go to the text file. We got what we needed right here. So let's clear that out. Keep a nice tidy workspace. Cool. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to use Certify again to request a certificate on behalf of administrator. Okay, we already knew that we have an account in there called administrator, when we enumerated everybody. So this is going to produce a certificate and a private key to a PFX file, called to an administrator PFX. So once again, here we're going to use sudo. So we want the file to come out, because one thing, if you don't use sudo, or if you're not in the correct privileges, what it'll do is it'll do a standard out, permission denied, but standard out onto the screen, and it's going to give you a base 64 hash. However, if you try to copy that into, like, say, Nano into a PFX file, it's not going to work because it needs to be a binary. So if you just try to take that base64 and put it into that PFX file, it's not going to read it. So this is so. I definitely get you where it says where you said sudo gets me too many times for it to be funny. So I definitely I feel your pain on that. So if right here, if we want to use sudo anywhere, let's make sure we do this because we want that PFX file to be transferred with the binary installed and not us trying to, because any other way, it's not going to work. Okay, so, all right, so let's do certify or sudo um, certify dash AD. Let's do a request. Do a request. Do a U dash U SVC underscore CA. So now we're going to utilize the service account to do this. So dash P, and then we'll do utilize the 2026. And then the certificate authority is going to be welcome dash CA. Our target is going to be welcome.local. Our template is going to be welcome dash template. Our UPN is going to be administrator at welcome.local, and DNS is going to be 10.0.28.98. All right, let's see what comes of this. Requesting. Yeah. All right, so now we've got our certificate. It was written to administrator underscore 10 PFX. Okay. So now what we need to do is we need to be able to get the hash for the administrator because that's what we're going to utilize to authenticate to the when we go to remote in using evil WinRM. Okay, so sudo certify AD auth PFX administrator underscore 10.pfx dash DC IP 0.28.98. Here we want to use 0, so it gives us two options. As you see, we got UPN and DNS host name, so we want to be able to utilize 0. We want the administrator 0. Yes. Cool. All right. So as you can see here, go ahead. If you look down here, so after running this, we're able to pull a hash for administrator at welcome.local. There's an NTLM hash. So obviously we've got this empty file here, but then we've got our hash here. So what we want to do from here, and once again, if you're taking notes, like I said, I use Notion, some use Obsidian, others just use Notepad or Notepad++ or whatever else is out there. Take this stuff and put it in your screen, like save that to your notes. So that way you don't have to go and grab a copy just like that. So, but for this demonstration purposes, I'm going to do this. So that way it's easier to kind of grab from your notes and then just sync it into on screen. Okay, so from here, what we're going to do is we're going to do evil WinRM. We don't need to do sudo on this. -I, welcome.local. The username is going to be administrator, and then -H because we're using a hash. So now what we're going to do is grab right here, do a copy, and do a paste. And let's see what happens. Cool. So like I said before, if this didn't work, you saw what we did earlier with iPark when we tried to get in and we had the wrong credentials. It was able to get us to here, but it didn't show us that we were actually in the account of iPark. But we did with the other ones. So we know that that hash was correct. So basically what we did is we found a vulnerability using Certify. Um, and we took the service account that we now owned or we pwned, um, and we took that service account. We're able to utilize that with Certify to be able to find a vulnerability, which was the ESC1 vulnerability, and then create um, a go up here and create or you try to set up a certificate or get a certificate for the administrator. And then from there, it was able to generate a PFX file for us. And then from there, we could run the PFX file to be able to get the NTLM hash for the administrator. Remember, we couldn't get the password. We were able to get the hash, and we can always authenticate with a hash. So, and then what we did is we were able to use Evil WinRM. Let's see if we can clear our screen. Yep. Okay, so now we're in the administrator. And then, so let's do LS. Let's go to our desktop because that's typically where everything's at. LS. And look at that. So remember, we were finding two things. Our objective for the scope of all this was to find the user flag and the root flag. So we found the user flag early on. That was pretty quick. We were able to get there fairly quick, but now it took a few more tools, a few more things to be able to get to the administrator. So, and then once again, since we're in a Windows environment, type root.txt. Boom, there's our second flag, our root flag. So as you can see, what we did is we utilized all different tools. And if you go to this and you look at the write-ups, everybody's is different. I know mine is definitely different the way I approached it than some others because I was able to take advantage of the RPC client and able to change passwords based off of what I found in Bloodhound. So all I did was that. Other write-ups, people used some elaborate tooling. They used some password, Rocky.txt files, stuff like that. So basically, I just wanted to kind of keep it efficient, try to utilize the tools to the best of my ability. And since I was able to do all that with just a minimal amount of tools, hey, I think it was a pretty good success for all this. We didn't have to go into great detail and everything. So we used RustScan in combination with Nmap. We were able to use Evil WinRM initially. We did some netexec for the SMB shares to enumerate those. We utilized RPC client to enum DOM users and DOM groups. And then also we utilized Bloodhound so that way we could get that mapping to where these users and what their transitive controls were for their outbound, because that's mainly what we wanted to be able to find out, what their outbound controls were. But the transitive objective control or object control is really what we wanted to hone in on. And then, So, and then finally, we use Certify to be able to find the vulnerability that we could use to be able to take advantage of the certificate authority to manipulate and to be able to get a hash for the administrator. So, and then from there, we're able to authenticate with the administrator into their account to be able to find that root flag. So, um, this didn't take a whole lot of time. I think it took more time for me to talk through it than actually go through it. And Denerd, man, I'm sorry about the audio issues, man. I didn't realize the mic was out. So, um, but no worries. But that's this is welcome from HackSmarter Labs, hacksmarter.org. So anybody out there that's watching besides Tyler, so this is his lab. So Tyler, I definitely appreciate it, man. Um, I can't say enough how much Tyler makes him and his guys make the best labs out there. These are all real. Um, these are all real labs. These are stuff that since if you're not familiar with Tyler, he's a pen tester. This is stuff he's found in environments. Um, these are real world type scenarios versus just flake or fake CTFs. Um, so this is one of the easy ones. This is labeled as easy. And like I said, um, go to hacksmarter.org. They have all sorts of labs on there. To me, these are some of the best labs out there to get your hands dirty on. So, and if you ever get stuck, there are write-ups in there that anybody can see um, and just kind of help you through. So if you get stuck on a certain spot, open up the write-up, scroll down slowly because you don't want to get too far ahead, whatnot. But for the most part, this lived up to its easy level. Not a whole lot that needed to go into this, just a few tool sets and a little bit of logical thinking. And you could take this and kind of go set your methodology in order, and you'll be able to get to the root just like how we did here. So, hey, I appreciate you watching. Next time, I know my audio will be a whole lot better. I've got a microphone coming for Christmas, so I'll be able to get that going, and we shouldn't have any issues whatsoever. So that way, I can kind of get rid of this little um, lapel microphone. Like as you can see, I had to switch to the Bluetooths, and I'm so glad we were able to finally work that out. So, hey, thanks for watching. Like I said, this is Rick at Port Zero, and I love highlighting and showcasing these labs for users for Tyler. The great thing about him is he doesn't mind if we do these walkthroughs. So, um, and like I said, everybody's different in the way they approach it. So, um, thanks for watching. I appreciate it, and um, let's hit up another lab here in the next couple days, and we'll live stream again. So I know we've been going for now about a lot over an hour, so about an hour and a half. But yeah, thanks for watching. Appreciate it, and peace out.